Hello and welcome to Say What, another video tutorial for English Intermediate. Today we're going to look at the verbs make and do, the collocations, phrasal verbs and idioms used with these verbs. To start off with then, what is a collocation? A collocation is a combination of words formed when two or more words are often used together to form a separate meaning. An example, we might say do an exam. Here we would not say make an exam. Being able to recognise and use collocations correctly is very important in language learning, and it demonstrates a competence in the learner. Now, make and do. These are two verbs that are very often confused, and we will look at some examples. I might say, I always have lots to do around the house. Here we know the correct verb would be do, not make, for example. I always have lots to make around the house. In this case, the sentence does not make sense. So we would say, I always have lots to do around the house. Another example, I always do my own bed in the morning. Here it doesn't quite sound right, so we might use a different verb. I always make my own bed in the morning. It's very difficult to have a look at the distinguishing the meanings between the do or make. But let's have a look. Do is usually used to describe an activity or a job. An example, I should do more homework. Here we would not say I should make more homework. The correct phrase, I should do more homework. Make usually means to create or produce something. Did you make this cake yourself? Not did you do this cake yourself. Making the cake is a creation or a production of something. Some common collocations then with do and make. When we look at do, we often describe do with housework duties, such as do the washing up, do the shopping. These are common collocations used with the verb do. Other examples, we have do business, do a course, do exercise, do a favour, do work. And again we have do housework or do homework, which are two other common collocations. Now with make, we have again a lot of collocations, common collocations. We have make an appointment, make the bed, which we saw in the previous example, make a decision, make an effort, make an excuse, make friends, make money, make a noise, make a phone call, make a plan, and make a promise. There are lots of other common collocations that are used. These are just some of the most common ones that you may have already heard before, or that may make sense to you in the sentence, in the context. Let's have a look now at phrasal verbs and idioms. We will start by looking at what phrasal verbs are. Phrasal verbs are idiomatic expressions which combine verbs and prepositions to make new verbs. These meanings cannot be understood simply by looking at the individual words, but understood more as a whole verb. An idiom, on the other hand, is a phrase where the words together have a meaning that is different from the dictionary definition of an individual word, similar to the phrasal verbs, but normally an expression. So phrasal verbs firstly with the verb make. An example, make for. This normally means to move in the direction of something or head towards it. An example might be to make for the door. To make for the door, we could say to head for the door or to go in the direction of the door. Another phrasal verb might be make out. Now here we have two meanings. Firstly, to try and see something or determine what it is, normally with a bit of difficulty. An example, I could just make out it was him by his hat. The second meaning would be to try and understand or determine what someone is saying with some difficulty. An example would be, I could barely make out what she was saying because of her accent. In both these examples, there is difficulty in being able to see or to be able to hear what someone is saying. Another example might be make up. Now, we know makeup can be what we put on our face, which would be a noun. In this case, to make up would be a phrasal verb. Now, first meaning is to resolve an argument and become friends again. An example, I wanted to make up after our fight. Second meaning, to invent a story, a lie, or an excuse. An example, he was so late, so he had to make up a good excuse. Another phrasal verb might be make over. Now, this meaning would be to renovate or change the look of something to give it a different appearance. Normally used in the context of a house, perhaps, if we want to give a house a makeover. An example, they wanted a complete makeover of their house. Now, they want to change the way it looks to renovate it, perhaps. Now we have some idioms that we can look at with make. Make a face. Now, make a face would be to change the features in your face to give a different look, funny, scary, perhaps. An example, the baby started laughing when I made a funny face. Make believe. Now, make believe is to pretend or imagine something that is not real or it is a fantasy. An example, let's make believe that we are on an adventure together. It's a complete fantasy, we are going to pretend, to make believe. Make do. Now, this would be to manage to live with or survive on the means available. An example of this, we won't get paid this month, so we will have to try and make do with what we have. We have to try and live with what we have, to make do. To make fun of, perhaps you've heard this one, to mock or ridicule someone for something they say or do. An example, he was always making fun of his brother. Now, making fun of is typically to laugh at somebody for something they say or do, to mock, in other words. To make sense. Now, this would be to be reasonable, logical, or comprehensible. An example, what you said doesn't make sense. It's not comprehensible. It's incomprehensible. Doesn't make sense. Phrasal verbs now with the verb do. We might have do up. Again, two different meanings. The first one, to repair and renovate. Again, like a house, for example. An example, we're doing up the kitchen, it's going to look lovely. We're making repairs, we're making changes, we're renovating. The second example is to fasten or close something. Specifically when you're looking at clothes, for example, we might say, you need to do up the buttons on your shirt, or you need to do up your shoelace. Another phrasal verb, do without. Here we have managing despite in the absence of something. An example, we had to do without internet for a while. Now let's have a look at some idioms with make. There are quite a few, but they are quite complex, so perhaps more at an advanced level. So we will look at some more common ones at the intermediate level. We have can or could do without. Now, this means to prefer not to experience something or to deal with it. An example, I can do without the stress today. I can do without the stress today. To do away with means to put an end to, eliminate, or destroy something. Now, an example of this would be they are going to do away with the smoking ban. In other words, they're going to eliminate the smoking ban. Another one might be to do one proud. Now, this would be to act or do something in a way that gives cause for someone to be proud or to someone to have pride. An example, you have done really well in school this year, son. You've done us proud. Okay? They've made their parents feel pride. Do one's bit. To help make a contribution or play a part in an overall effort or goal. An example, we can all do our bit for the environment and help save our planet. Perhaps something you've heard before, do our bit. So it makes to make a contribution or to help in some way, to help in an overall goal. Okay, so there we've looked at the verbs do and make, and we've looked at some common collocations, phrasal verbs, and idioms. Thank you once again for listening.